Okay, so we'll do just a brief theory part of the return filing. Then later we'll come and demonstrate the actual filing. So this is in regard to filing of return for the year 2025. And this will be our areas of focus. So we know that whenever we talk about filing of returns, then we have three types of returns that can be filed. So we have nil filing. Then also we have filing where you have a business income. And also we have filing where you have received income from employment. Then last and not least, we have filing of income that is exempt from tax. So everybody is expected to file regardless of whether the income that you have received is subject to tax or not. Then we look at other things that have been done to the return to enable ease of filing for the year 2025. So I want to start by asking who should file. And as I have said earlier, they have said that everybody with an active KRA PIN is expected by the commissioner to file. So when I talk about an active PIN, what do I mean? What I mean is that whenever you apply for a KRA PIN, you can have a PIN, a KRA PIN, but which is not active. A good example is students who are applying for KRA PIN for the sake of HELB application. And also we have that other category of Kenyans applying for PIN, not because they have any income, but because they want to apply for either utility bill like a PLC or water meter. So for those two categories, either the students who are applying for the sake of HELB loans and furtherance of their studies, and even that other person who does not have an income. However, they need a KRA PIN, they'll be allowed to apply for a PIN without obligation. So once you have a PIN without obligation, the filing, the obligation will not apply to you. However, for any other category of Kenyans with an active PIN, whether you have an income or you don't have an income, you will be expected to file an annual income tax return, which for now is due on or before 30th of June of 2026. So in case you don't have an income and you have an active PIN, then you'll be required to file a nil return. When I'm doing the demonstration, I'll be able to take you through how to do a nil return. So filing of nil return applies to everybody with a KRA PIN. This will only be where you don't have any gainful income for the year of that, for that year. Then also we have a filing of annual income tax return for employment income only, and also for business income and exempt income. And also we have a category of taxpayers who, when they did some business or they did some services or they applied some services, certain amount of taxes was withheld from them. And those taxes we refer to them as withholding tax credits. So with that certificate, I will also be able to take you through how to file the same. So failure to file the return, then there will be a penalty which will be applicable. So the penalty will depend on the PIN that you have. If you are an individual with a PIN which starts with an A, then the penalty will be 2,000 per year. If you are an entity, an organization, or a company with a PIN which starts with a P, then the penalty will be 20,000 per year. So what do you need in order to be able to file? If the income that you have received is employment income, then you only need a P9. So a P9 normally is a summary of your pay slip. Whenever you are in employment, you will receive an income called employment income. And every month, the employer is supposed to give you a P9. Then at the end of the year, they are supposed to give you a P9, which is a summary of the whatever you have been paid throughout the year. So the P9 will have the gross salary, the taxes that were deducted from you, and that is what you'll be using to file your return. And in case you are an entity, an organization, or a company then you will be required to engage the services of an auditor. They'll give you an audit report, which you'll use to file the annual return. And remember, filing applies for all income, whether exempt or not exempt. So for filing of employment income, this is whereby you as an individual, you are employed and you are receiving, or you have, for the year 2025, you received employment income or income as a result of being employed by an organization or an entity. So you'll be required to file. So for filing for employment income, the commissioners has provided a simplified way of filing. So there are several ways that you can file. The first one is by web form. This is whereby you just log into KRA, ITAP system, and be able to file. Then the other one will be an Excel form. This also, you log into KRA system, you download an Excel form, and you'll be able to file depending with the income that you have received. So whenever you are filing using either the web form or the downloaded Excel form, then most of the details of the employment income will come already pre-filled. They'll already come already pre-filled. All you will be doing will be confirming the accuracy or the correctness of what the commissioner has pre-filled. So with your P9, and having downloaded either the Excel form or the web, you will only be confirming that the details that are in the return are as per your P9. Then you'll be able to file. And what you'll be required is just to go there, download the return way, and you'll be able to do your return. The other way of doing the return will be through eCitizen portal. This is whereby you log into your eCitizen portal, then you'll be able to file. And this will only apply to employment income only. So then we have other categories of filing, and this will apply to entities. When I talk about entities, you can be a CBO, a self-help group, an organization, either a company or any other organization. So also remember, even as the individual will be filing, also the organization will be required to file. So the return for the organization also will come already pre-filled with certain details, depending with what you did for the year 2025. In case you are an organization which did some work and certain amount of taxes was withheld from you, then the return will come already pre-filled with all those withholding credits. In case you are an organization which is in commercial activity and you are doing a business and you received an income which is subject to taxation, and you were able to pay installment taxes, then also that will come already pre-filled in your annual income tax return. So in case you are registered as a partnership, also the details of the partners will come already filled in the return. And what do you need to do? You only need to use the download auto-populated return to be able to see the pre-filled data. So the commissioner is making it easier for you to be able to file. So still on pre-filing, then also, even as we are talking about return filing today, we will be talking about two things, about on how to declare your income and also on how to claim expenses. And now at this moment, I'm talking about that entity or that business or that organization or that CBO or that self-help group which is dealing in commercial activity. Remember, for a CBO, you are allowed to either do business, also you are allowed to do other activities which may not be subject to taxation. At this moment, I want to go back to what we did previously, and we talked about the sources of income for a CBO or a self-help group. And in my previous presentation, I said a community-based organization or a self-help group can have several sources of income, and the source of income that they have will depend whether the income will be subject to taxation or not be subject to taxation. And when I was talking about the sources of income of a CBO or a self-help group, I talked about grants, I also talked about donation, and I specified that for those two categories of incomes, they will not be subject to taxation. However, the commissioner will still require the entity, the CBO or the self-help group, to declare the income and also to claim the expenses that relates to the income that has been received. So at this moment, I just want to talk about that self-help group or a community-based organization which is dealing in commercial activity, and their main aim is to make an income or a gain, and that income is subject to taxation. So this will refer to filing for an entity, a CBO, or a self-help group which is in business. They are basically in commercial activity and they are generating an income which is subject to taxation. So they will be expected to declare the income in the annual income tax return, and also they'll be expected to claim the expenses. So these are the conditions that the CBO or the self-help group, which is in commercial activity, and they're in a gainful business, they're getting business income, which is subject to taxation. So for them to be able to claim the expenses, these conditions must be made. So the first condition is that the expenses that they are claiming are wholly and exclusively incurred for the business that they are running as a CBO or as a self-help group. Then the second condition will be that the invoices that they will be using to claim the expenses must be supported by e-teams or teams. So when I talk about e-teams, then I mean I'm talking about an electronic invoicing system that has been availed by KRA. So whenever you are going to purchase certain items or certain purchases, which at the end of the period you will want to claim for your business, then always remember to give out your CBO or self-help group to the person supplying you. And why do we do that? We do that so that the person supplying you will be able to capture the sale. And once they capture the sale, you will receive an invoice, which is an invoice supported by e-teams or teams. And that invoice, the features of that invoice is it will have two pins. It will have your CBO's pin as the buyer, and also it will have the supplier's pin as the seller. Then you'll be able to claim those expenses. Then later in my presentation, I'll tell you about how to claim expenses which have not been supported, because starting this year, what the commissioner is doing is it will be validating all incomes that have been submitted by the taxpayers. And remember, as a point of clarification, this will only apply to that entity, that self-help group, that community-based organization, which is in commercial activity and they are generating business income. So what will happen is, as you are filing the return for your organization, for your CBO or for your self-help group, there will be some form of validation which will apply to that return even as you are filing. So it will, once you are declaring the return for the business that is from commercial activity, the commissioner will want to confirm that the income that you are declaring is the correct income. So the commissioner will validate or will cross-check that the income that you have declared in your annual income tax return for the organization is the actual return that was transmitted to KRA. So it is taking place even as we are doing the return for the year 2025. And also, remember we have told you about the conditions for you to be able to claim the expenses for the business. And we said those expenses must be supported by e-teams. However, the commissioner is aware to the fact that not all expenses can be supported by e-teams or teams invoices. So that is why there is provision for that organization, for that entity, for that self-help group, or for that community-based organization, which is in business, and they're getting income from that business to be able to claim all the expenses. So there are certain expenses that you will be your organization will be allowed to claim, and they'll not undergo the verification of expenses. So the types of the expenses that your organization will be allowed to claim have been listed here. So one of them is salary and wages. This applies to an organization, the self-help group, or the community-based organization with employees. So once, in case you have employees, remember, you will be required as part of registration to pick pay as an obligation. Somebody is talking, so I'll pause a bit. Please mute.
Apologies for that. Joseph.
Okay. I can continue.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. So we were talking about claiming of expenses by an organization, and we said an organization will have certain expenses that are wholly and inclusively incurred for the business. And also we said that all expenses must be supported by e-teams. However, we are alive to the situation that not all expenses can be supported. That is why the commissioner has provided certain certain expenses to be claimed by that entity, and however, those expenses will not be subjected to verification. A good example is salary and wages, which applies to an organization which has employed employees to help them run the business. So whatever they pay them as salary and wages will be allowed for them to claim without the verification. Also, if the organization has imported certain services, then also that one they will be able to claim. Also, the other thing is, if an organization has a loan from a financial institution and they're paying interest to the financial institution, the interest that they're paying, they'll be able to claim without the verification. Also, in case they have traveled either locally or abroad and they've incurred an expense in relation to airline passenger ticketing, also they will be able to claim. Then the other one will be bank charges, because we know for you to get an income, most probably the income will come through the bank. So whatever income that you are receiving, there will be certain bank charges that will apply to your organization, and that expense called bank charges will not be subjected to verification. So what is the way forward for your CBO? The way forward for your CBO is whenever you are going to purchase any item or any expense for the business, then remember always to give your CBO or your self-help group PIN to all the suppliers, and this will apply with even if you are the most common expense is rental expense. So remember, if your organization is in a rental property where you are paying rent, then remember to give out your PIN to the landlord and tell them to give you a receipt that is supported by either eTeams or Teams, depending with the device that they are using. And also, in case you are in the business of buying and selling, before you buy, always give out your KRA PIN and tell the person that you are buying from that whatever you're buying, you wish to claim it as an expense for the business. And this will always also apply even when you go to the supermarket. Always also give out your organization PIN to be able to claim the same. So what we are saying is that you must ensure that all your purchases for the business, and remember the clarification that I've given is that if you are going to claim, then your eTeams, your invoices must be supported by eTeams. And this will also apply to even that organization which has received either donation or grant income. And remember, whenever you receive either donation or a grant income, you'll have to spend it. And whenever you are spending it, remember the commissioner will expect you to do a return. So the return will have grant income or donation as an income. Then we'll have expenses that relate to how you spend the income from grant or income from donation. And for you to be able also to claim that, then your purchases must be supported accordingly. So allow me to digress a bit, and I want to talk about withholding tax. And withholding tax will apply to that organization or that individual who provides certain services, and those services are a certain amount of taxes will be withheld from them. So this will be either apply to an individual. You as an individual, you can have supplied certain services and certain amount of taxes was withheld. When the amount was being paid to you, you realize that a portion of the same has been withheld and paid directly to KRA. Then the other part will apply to even as an organization. You provide certain services, and when you are being paid, then the same a certain amount will be withheld, or it will apply to you as an organization. You have requested or you have sourced somebody to provide you with certain services. A good example is audit services or legal services. So for those two categories of service provider who are independent contractor, they are outsiders coming into your organization to provide your organization with specialized services or professional services. Your organization will be expected that whenever you are paying them, so long as the amount that you are paying the lawyer or you are paying the auditor is more than 24,000, then you will be expected to withhold an applicable amount of taxes from those individuals or those organizations and remit the same to KRA or to the commissioner within 5 working days. So in case in your premises you want the services, or an auditor or a lawyer comes to provide you with certain services, remember to withhold so long as the amount that you are paying them is above 24,000. So you withhold and pay to the commissioner within 5 working days. So what will the person receive? The person who you have withheld from an applicable amount of taxes will receive a withholding certificate, which will be sent to their email, and also the same will be visible in their iTax profile. So there are 3 types of withholding taxes that are applicable. The first one is income tax withholding, which applies to anybody. So long as you engage a professional to do some certain work for you, then you are supposed to withhold applicable rate. I'm very clear on the applicable rate because the rates differ. So the minimum rate will be 3%, and this will always relate to contractual, and the maximum will be 20%, which will relate to non-resident. Then the other one will be VAT withholding tax. You'll find your organization or yourself, whenever you are supplying certain services or certain goods to an entity or to a taxpayer who has been appointed by the commissioner to be a VAT withholding agent, then they will withhold 2% of the amount that they're supposed to pay you and pay directly to the commissioner. Then the last category, which is not in my slide, is certain tenants. If you are in a landlord receiving rental income, then you will find yourself that maybe one of your tenant is a withholding rental income agent. So that tenant will withhold certain amount of taxes and pay directly to KRA. So then the next question is the withholding tax final? So the answer is yes, and also no, depending with the situation. For example, if you are a resident and you are an individual receiving interest income from the bank or from the financial institution, then whatever you receive as interest income will be withheld to taxes at 15% by the bank, the commercial bank, or the central bank, and the same will be remitted to KRA. And whatever has been withheld is final for you, so long as you are a resident and you are an individual, because that kind of interest will refer to it as qualifying interest. Also, in case you withhold from a non-resident, then whatever you have withheld from them will be final on them. However, for any other person, whatever has been withheld will not be final. Still, the person will be expected, or the entity will be expected, to declare the gross amount, claim the expenses that relate to that income that they have received, and then claim the taxes which have been withheld as tax credit as they are filing the annual return. So what are the common payments subject to withholding tax? I've tried to outline all of them here, but a good example is professional and consultancy fee that relates to mostly audit fee and legal fee. So then I've also talked about qualifying interest, and I've said for that person who is receiving qualifying interest, and then whatever has been withheld is final. And how do you know? How do you determine what is qualifying and what is not qualifying? The simplest way of knowing that is the person receiving. So if the person receiving the interest income is an individual, then we'll know that is a qualifying interest, and whatever has been withheld will be final. So if the person receiving is an entity, for example, if you are a CBO or a self-help group and you are receiving interest income, then remember whatever you have received as interest income will not be final. Your organization will still be expected to apply to declare the gross interest income, claim the expenses that relate to that interest, and claim the whatever has been held as a tax credit to be able to determine whether you have something payable or not payable. So what is the way forward for your CBO? This one I've already talked about. It is just a repetition of what I've talked about. We have said whenever you're going to buy anything for your CBO, for your self-help group, you are giving out your PIN to all your suppliers. Then you are insisting that they must give you a proper tax invoice, and that is an invoice which is supported by eTIMS or TIMS. Then also ensure that your purchases are transmitted to KRA. Then the last part of it is you must ensure that you keep your records, your tax records for a period of time. And why do we keep your records? We keep our records for the sake of, in case along the way we encounter a tax dispute with the KRA, then remember the burden of proof will be on the side of the taxpayer. So allow me now to stop there, and we want now to go to the real part of filing. So I'm going to demonstrate two types of returns, and I want to start by the individual return. So allow me to share my slide. I want to so I'm sharing my slide. I hope the individual return is visible. Please confirm whether you are seeing resident individual income tax return.
Yes, yes, we are.
Yes. So in my presentation, I said as an individual, you have several ways that have been provided by the commissioner to be able to file. You can file through WhatsApp, and we normally refer to it as Shuru. Also, you can file through eCitizen. Also, you can log into your iTax profile. And when you log into your iTax profile, you have been provided by two ways of filing. So you can file by web, and by web will apply to that person who has received purely employment income. Then also you can download the Excel form, which I've downloaded, then be able to file. So this is an example of a return which has been downloaded. So whenever you download this return, remember we said in my theory, we said it will come already pre-filled. So it will come already pre-filled with the PIN and also the period. And now, in case your income is purely from employment income, then it means it will come already pre-filled with the PIN of your organization or your employer, the name of your employer, and the amount or the gross amount that you received as employment income for the period 2025. So what will be required is, remember I said, for somebody who is in employment, you only require to have a P9. So with that P9, you will be just confirming or verifying to confirm that the details that have been pre-filled in the return are correct as per your P9. So you will just confirm whether for the year 2025, the gross income that you received from employment income was 2 million. Then you go back. Once you have confirmed it is correct, you go to section M. And for section M also, you just confirm whether the taxable amount that you received for the year was 2 million. And also you'll confirm whether the tax payable from your employment income is correct. If it is correct, you'll only need to go to the tax computation part of it and also confirm that whatever you contributed either to a pension scheme or to NSSF, it has been correctly been captured. Then also you'll be confirming that whatever was deducted from you as affordable housing levy has been captured correctly. Then also the amount that have been have contributed toward social health insurance has been refilled correctly. Then you confirm the return. So before you validate, always remember to check this part number 14, which refers to tax due or refund due. So whenever the figure is a positive, then remember you will be having something to pay to KRA. So in case it is correct, then you are supposed to validate the return. But remember, this figure is very important if you are filing for employment income. If it is a positive figure, you will be paying. So why am I careful to talk about this? Because most people normally they make errors. They file the original return. It has a positive figure. They submit to KRA. Then later they realize they made an error. So it will tell you sheets are ready to be uploaded. Do you want to generate and upload file? You say yes. Then it will tell you find the zip file somewhere. Then you say okay. But always remember, if you're filing for employment income, then the figure here should not be positive unless you are under deducted. Actually, normally it's supposed to be either a small figure or a negative figure. So always be careful to ensure that it is not a positive. Don't submit if it is a positive unless you are very, very sure that whatever figure is there is what you are planning to pay. So that will only apply to the person who has employment income alone. In case you are an individual and maybe you are in employment, then apart from employment, you have a side hustle. Maybe you did some consulting somewhere, or you have a business somewhere as a side hustle, then you will be required to file a single return, but with two income. You'll be required to declare both the employment income and also that other income that you have received. So what will you do? You'll come to basic information, and under number 7, do you have any income other than employment income? You are requested, or you will be expected to say yes. Once you have said yes, then another sheet will be open to you called profit and loss account. So in the profit and loss account, you will be expected to declare that other income that you have received. Because remember, you can be an individual employed but receiving other income. So what are the other incomes? You can be an individual but with rental property, whereby you are receiving rental income. So you'll be expected to declare the rental income here. Or you can be an individual but you have received interest income. But remember, for an individual, you have said whatever you receive that's interest income will be final. So the commissioner will not expect you to declare the same here. Or for commission, this will apply normally to the insurance people. So you can be an individual, but on the side, you are an insurance broker or an agent receiving commission income. So you'll be expected to capture the same here. In case of any other income which has not been which is not here, then we refer to it as other income. So you will be expected to claim the other incomes, to declare the other incomes here. And also remember, we have said in my presentation, we talked about a business or an entity claiming expenses. So you will be expected to claim the expenses down there. So that will apply to an individual, but with two incomes. So they have employment income, which will be expected to claim, to declare, and also they have a side hustle, and another income that is not employment income. So that is how they will be expected to file their income, their return. So allow me to go to that organization, how we file for an organization. And this will apply to your CBO or any other organization. So it will apply to the CBO, either making a business profit or in a commercial activity. And also it will apply to that CBO, either receiving an income which is not subject to taxes. Remember, we said for filing, every entity will be expected to file, whether you have employment income or you have business income, still will be expected to declare. So allow me to project So I'm projecting the iTax profile, and we want to go about on how to file for a business income. So assuming you are an entity, you are a CBO, you are a self-help group, either in commercial activity or you have received an income which is not business in nature and you are not expected to pay taxes. Remember, we said everybody is supposed to file. So I want to take you through the process of filing for an entity, an organization, either receiving an income which is subject to tax or an income that is not subject to taxation. So we are logging in, and I hope you are able to see the iTax profile. Then we say
Yes.
continue, then we put the password. So we are assuming that you are now logging in. So then we put the answer to that arithmetic question. Then we be in the iTax profile. So I want to take us through the process. So I want to start with that organization, that CBO, that self-help group, which is in commercial activity. So their purpose in which they have been formed is to generate an income. And the assumption is that CBO or that self-help group does not have an exemption certificate. Remember, in our prior presentation, we talked about income tax exemption certificate, and we said an organization is allowed to apply for an income tax exemption. And once they apply for income tax exemption, they will be exempted from paying income tax. But for this presentation, I want to talk about, first of all, that organization whose purpose has been formed is to be in commercial activity, and the income they're generating is business income that is subject to taxation. So the first thing they're supposed to do is you are supposed to confirm from your profile. Remember, the commissioner has provided an integrated iTax dashboard for you, the taxpayer, to confirm the amount of tax, the income that has been transmitted to the commissioner. So you come and click income, then we specify the period. So at the moment we are doing the return for the period 2025. Then once you have put the period, you come under download, you click on download, then you click on OK. Then there will be a CSV will be downloaded. So in the CSV, you will have two things. So you'll have the cells, which it will have a composition of the cells that have been transmitted to the commissioner for the year 2025. So we'll just open and confirm the cells. Then also, apart from that, you'll have another CSV for purchases. So the CSV for the purchases will have the total purchases that were transmitted to the commissioner. Remember, in my theory, I talked about your organization giving out its KRA PIN to the suppliers. So whenever you are buying, you give out your KRA PIN. Whenever you are purchasing anything for that business, for that organization, whether the income will be subject to taxation or not, give out your KRA PIN to the supplier so that when they are declaring the sale, the same will be transmitted for you to be able to claim as an expense. So allow me, first of all, to go to the return. I want to go to the return itself. The return that we are filing. Just give me a minute so that I'm able to project. We are filing for the organization, and the return can be, it applies both to that organization that is in business and also for that organization that has received income that is not subject to taxation. So just allow me to project my return. I hope the return is visible. You can
Yes, it is.
confirm.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we are now filing for the organization. So when we talk about the organization, we refer to the CBO or self-help group with an active KRA PIN. And this filing applies to both the two categories of the CBO and the self-help group. So it will apply to that CBO or the self-help group that has received an income that is subject to taxation. They're in a commercial activity. Also, it will apply to that organization or that CBO that has received certain incomes that although they are income, but they do not fall under the definition of business. And I gave out two examples of those income. I talked about donation and also I talked about grants. So a normal CBO or a normal self-help group, the business type will be others, and they will be expected to have registered as a club or a society. So this is the way they will have been registered. Then we have talked about two types of organization. We have talked about that organization which has applied for income tax exemption, and the commissioner has granted them the income tax exemption certificate. So for them, they will not be expected to pay taxes. However, they still be expected by the commissioner to have to declare that income. So what will they do for that category of organization with an exemption certificate? They will be expected under this. Do you have exemption certificate for the charitable organization? You're supposed to declare yes. So what will happen when you declare yes? Another page will be open here for you to be able to capture the exemption certificate number. Remember, whenever the commissioner gives an entity an exemption certificate, then the certificate will be valid for a period of 5 years. And what will apply for that organization with an exemption certificate on all their income that they are receiving, whether a business or non-business, all their incomes will not be subjected to taxation. So this is where you capture. But for that other organization without an exemption certificate, so they'll say no for that part. And remember, the part for profit and loss will still be open for them. So the first category is that organization, that entity, that CBO, that self-help group with commercial activity that falls, the income that they're receiving falls under the definition of business subject to taxation. Then they'll be expected to declare that income here. However, for that other category, of a CBO or a self-help group that has received those two incomes that I've talked about, either donation or grants, and even if they don't have the exemption certificate, this income will not be subject to taxation because they do not fall under the definition of a business income. However, the commissioner will expect that organization, that entity, that self-help group to declare the donation and the grant. And what they will do under other income, they're supposed to ensure that the narration of the income that they have received is clearly spelled out or clearly made. And why do we do like this? We do like this to ensure that, remember, this return will be subject to a return review by the commissioner. So whenever the commissioner opens up this return to review, they'll be able to see that this CBO, this self-help group, received the income that we refer to as donation, and they have captured the same, and also they received grants, and also they have captured the same. So it will be done like this to make it easier for the commissioner to be able to review the same. Then I'm going back now to that organization which is in commercial activity, and the income they're receiving is falling under the definition of business. So whenever they are declaring this income, remember the commissioner will cross-check to confirm that the 4.4 million that you have declared as an income for the year, which is subject to taxation, is in tandem, is the actual income that was transmitted to commissioner. If the amount that you have declared here is less than what has been transmitted to the commissioner, then the return will not go. You will find an error, and the error will say the income that you are declaring is less than what has been transmitted to the commissioner. Please declare the correct income. So then we have talked about the business claiming expenses that have been wholly and inclusively incurred for that business. And we said certain expenses, you will be allowed to claim them without the verification. So one of the expenses that your entity will be allowed to claim without the verification of the expenses will be depreciation. Then the other one will be salary and wages. That is what you pay to your employees. You are allowed to claim it without the cross verification of the same. Then anything you claim under total employment income, there will be no verification, either contribution to NSSF, contribution to NITA, and the rest. The commissioner will not be cross-checking. You'll be allowed to claim this. However, the catch or the advice that we normally give our taxpayer is whatever you claim as salary and wages for the year must be the same as what has been declared in the monthly pay return for the 12-month period. So always remember the total that you have claimed here is in line with the total that you have declared in your pay return. What does it mean for any entity with employees? What it means is that any entity with employees, all salaries and wages, and I want to repeat, all salaries and wages, whatever you are paying to your employees, whether temporary staff, permanent staff, or contract staff, remember to capture everything under the monthly pay return. So this will apply for even those categories of employees whose income is not subject to taxation. Always remember to put it in the pay return so that at the end of the year, when now you want to claim total employment cost for your organization, the total that appears here is the same as the total that will be in the pay return. Then the other thing that will be allowed by the commissioner to claim without the verification is, we talked about interest expense, and this applies to an organization with a loan facility from a commercial bank, and they are paying both the principal loan and also the interest in regard to that loan. So the portion that the organization is paying as interest will be allowed to be claimed without any verification. Then the last one will be fees charged by the financial institution. Also, you'll be allowed to claim without verification. So then, apart from that, you will be allowed to claim other expenses. However, remember, any other expenses that will be claiming here must be supported by an eTIMS invoice. So the other question now that will come, what happens to those expenses that have not been supported by eTIMS? So what will happen for in case you have certain expenses that do not fall under what I've talked about up there. However, they were for the business. They were for that organization, but you did not have eTIMS invoices, then the commissioner will also allow you to claim them. So how do you go about it? Allow me to take you through how you are going to claim the expenses that have not been supported by eTIMS. So we are going back to our iTax profile. I hope my iTax profile is visible.
Yes, it is.
Yes, so this is a situation whereby as an organization, you want to file your return for the year 2025. However, you claimed certain expenses, which were wholly and exclusively incurred for your organization. A good example is if you received a grant income, you must have spent it somehow, somewhere, either for, or if you received donation, you must have spent it. But now here is a situation whereby you are required now to file them and to claim the expenses. So you'll go under return, then we go under return adjustment, then we click on manual adjustment, then we select the year that we want to adjust, then we go to click to next. And remember, what are we doing? We have certain expenses that are for the organization. However, we do not have the proper tax invoice. And when we are talking about proper tax invoice, we are referring to those expenses that you have claimed. A good example may be Matatu fare or any other business licenses from the county government, or maybe fire licenses, and also or any other expense that your organization has incurred. However, you don't have a support in regard to it. So you'll be required to click to download here. So when you click to download, what we'll get will be an Excel. So that Excel is what will be required to put all your details. Then once you have put all the details, there will be a portion for putting the PIN. I will take you through the Excel later. So you put the supplier's PIN. Where you don't have the PIN, it is not mandatory. So you put the total in that Excel, then you save as a CSV, then you attach. And you come and where you had received it and you attach. And as you are attaching, if your Excel has 10 million as expenses for your organization, then remember to scan all the invoices. The invoices that you are claiming were not ITIM supported. Remember to scan them in one document. Then you choose the file and you attach the same. Then you submit. And remember this process, we are going through it before we do the return. So what do? We click here. It will open an Excel, which I'll share in a bit. And once you have opened the Excel, you put all the total, all the breakdown of the purchases that you have claimed for your organization. However, they are not supported by eTeams. Then you save. And when you're doing the Excel, there are certain tips that I'll take you through, even as I will be projecting the Excel. The Excel. So once you save it, you choose it, attach it, then you upload supporting document. If the Excel has 10 million, the supporting document are supposed to be attached here. Then you submit and will now be good to go. So now allow me to, I want to stop projecting that one and show you the Excel, the way the Excel looks like. Just give me a minute to be able to show you the some I want to project my Excel. Just give me a minute as I so I hope we are clear up to there. This will apply to, we want to claim the invoices that have not been supported by eTeams. Okay. So I want to project the Excel there. Remember I told you there will be an Excel to be downloaded. So I want to share the Excel. Sorry, this is not the Excel. Sorry. So, okay. Okay, please confirm whether you are able to see the Excel.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so this is the Excel that we have downloaded and we want to capture all the purchases for the organization. These purchases or expenses, they are incurred for the organization. However, we don't have eTeam supported invoices, but we want to claim them. So there will be the part one for claiming the supplier PIN. And remember, I've said that supplier PIN is not mandatory. So a good example is, let's say, a good supplier, which I'm very sure will not have, you may not have an eTeams invoice, is county government. So for the county government, we'll just pick the county government, then you put the invoice name, then the invoice date, assuming this is just for an example. Then we put a description. So we say business license. That is a good example of an expense, which I'm very sure they will not give you a license, an eTeams invoice. Then you put the figure, the amount that you have paid to the county government. So this Excel has several tips that you must adhere to for you to be able to to submit it correctly. So we don't remove the headings. That is the first tip. So once you have put all the figures here, all the details, don't remove the headings. Then the second tip is whenever you're putting the amounts, do not put the commas. You put just the figure the way it is. Then the other tip for this Excel is don't put a dot. For example, if you have a figure which is 120.56, don't put the 56. So those are the tips. So once you have put all your purchases for the year which have not been supported, assuming the total is 10 million, assuming that is the total, so you will save the document, then you upload the way I've taken you through. Then once you have uploaded, now we are going back to our return. We are going back to our return to be able now to submit the return. So we are going back to, remember the return for the entity that we have filed, we are going back to it to be able to capture. So in case your Excel has 10 million or 5 million as the expenses that you have incurred for your organization, then now we want to capture them in the return. Just give me a moment, even as I'm looking for my return, as I'm projecting the return itself. So we have already captured them in the Excel, and we have said that you don't remove the headings, and also we have said you don't put a dot, and also we have said you don't put a comma in the return. Then we have already uploaded the same. So we go back to the return. Just give me a few minutes. My return has disappeared, but I'm looking for it. So in the return or the Excel, the IT2C return, in the last portion, we will refer to it as tax computation. We'll be able to so please confirm whether you are seeing the IT2C return.
Yes, we are.
Yes, so this is the IT2C return. We have already captured all your purchases that have not been supported by eTeams in the Excel, the normal Excel, and we have uploaded in the iTax system. So we come back to the return, we put the same amount. So if the whatever you had uploaded is 10 million, that is what we put also here, even as we are uploading the return. And also remember the return, no dots in the return. For example, avoid putting dot something here. If you put that, the return will give you an error. So we put all figures. So whatever we have uploaded, remember we have uploaded two things: Excel breakdown of the expenses that we don't have a supporting eTeams invoice, and also we have attached supporting document. If the total is 10 million, the supporting document is to the tune of 10 million. Then we come now to the return. We put number 6, manual non-eTeams expenses. We put it here. Then what do? We come and validate the return. And once it is validated, we upload the same in our iTax profile. So that will apply to that organization, which either you have commercial activity and your income is business income, which is subject to taxation. And also it will apply to that organization that has received certain incomes that they are for their organization. However, taxation will not apply to them. And I've also clarified on the two types of incomes. There are several others, but I've only dwelt on two incomes. So once I've done that, you'll be able to have filed for your organization. So I've talked for some time, and now I want to open the floor for questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Luca. I think we've been able to cover quite a bit. Just a minute. Apologies for that. Apologies for that. I lost my audio for a minute. But thank you so much, Mr. Luca. I think we've been able to cover a bit. And the reason you see him going back and forth between the individual return and the company return is because for a group of us, we've been in these sessions before and covered how to do the returns for your CBO, for your self-help group. Or I believe some of us might be in a CHAMA or such an organization. Hence, it's something that we've been building on and training on. And as the year comes to an end, now we were coming to the income tax return. So this is sort of a continuation of what we've been doing. So in case you're joining us for the first time and you can hear him talking about the other returns and you're a bit lost, you can kindly check KRA TV on YouTube. You'll see the training sessions that we've had now covering the CBOs, that is the income, the type of income that is subject to tax, what is not subject to tax, and now when it comes to the filing, what or how you go about the filing. So thank you, Mr. Luca. You've also handled emerging issues like the claiming of the expenses, the claiming of the manual expenses. So I can see one hand that is up. Let me see if Alex is able to ask his question. Then now we go to the chat box. Alex, you can just unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, my name is Alex Kipchirchir. I'm an accountant and a tax consultant. I have a question on tax exemption. So, what is the process and requirements of being exempted, tax exempted? And
Okay.
also, if a company is tax exempted, does it mean they will be exempted only on income tax component, and if they have employees, they'll be required to pay. Is that true? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Alex. So you're asking about tax exemption specifically for a limited company. Alex? Okay. Albert, I'm sure you got that question.
Yes, it's true.
Okay.
Yes.
Mutinda also, just before we so that you're able to address all of them, Mutinda also, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Then we'll take one last one from CPA Peter. So CPA.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mutinda, and I am working in a church. My question is, there is a term which is being used by the person presenting. The term is claim. Kindly, I am asking him just to elaborate. What is it? What does it mean to claim? Are you claiming? I really don't understand what it means to claim. So that was my question.
Okay, that is a good question, Mutinda. So we'll take those two first. Mr. Albert?
Okay, so thank you. I'll start with the last asked question by Mutinda. And Mutinda said that from a church. So as I was presenting, I said certain income will be received by an organization and they will be not subject to taxation. However, we said or we clarified that still the commissioner will expect your church to declare a return for the year so long as they have an active PIN. So a good example for a church will have an income called either offering and tithes. So from KRA perspective, offering and tithes will not be subject to taxation. However, that church, it will have certain incomes that it will incur. A good example is the church may have employees. So for the employees, whenever they're being paid a salary, then that salary that they're being paid, the church will be expected to claim it, or to, when they're doing their return as a church, they'll declare the income as tithes and offering, then they put a figure. Then they'll have expenses that relates to that church. And a good example is salary and wages to church staff or church employees. So remember, for the church employees, the church will be expected to deduct tax from the employees and remit the same to KRA. And the amount that they're paying the employees will be an expense that the church will be expected to report or to claim from, even as they're reporting the tithes and offering as an income, although it is not subject to taxation. We are quick to say there will be no taxation, but the expenses, for example, the church will have KPLC, electricity as an expense, it will have water as an expense, it will have certain expenses that it will have incurred. So what the commission is saying is that even you as a church, although your tithes and offering will not be subject to taxation, however, when you are spending for that church, then help us to ensure that the expenses that we are incurring for the church, you get them to be supported by e-teams, so that with that, we will be giving KRA visibility on your suppliers. So in case you are a church and you have electricity as an expense, remember to give out KPLC, your church KRA pin, so that whenever you pay the electricity bill, the same will be auto-populated and will be able to claim. So Mutinda, that is what I meant by claiming. So claiming relates to the expenses for the church that you will be expected to declare. Remember, you are declaring an income or tithes and offering, and also you are claiming the expenses for the church. And I've given out an example: salary and wages to the employees. Salary and wages to the employees, you deduct taxes and pay on a monthly basis. Then at the end of the year, you claim whatever the church has paid its employee. Then the other one is in case the church engages an auditor, because I'm very sure the church will want an audited account from the CPA. So whenever you are engaging a CPA to provide for you financial statement or audited accounts, also that will be an expense. And in case also there is a lawyer which the church has engaged to provide some services, that also will be an expense that the church will be expected to claim. So what we are saying, or what the commission is saying, is for those two types of expenses, lawyer and auditor, let them give you a proper tax invoice, even as you are claiming them as expenses for the church. Then now I'll go to the other person who has talked about exemption. So whenever we talk about income tax exemption, we have two categories of income tax exemption. So I'll just talk briefly through all of the two, although your question was not clear on which one you wanted, but I'll just mention them. So the first one will apply to individuals, or individuals we refer to as persons with disability. So persons with disability will be allowed, the commissioner allows them to apply for an income tax exemption certificate, which relates to their disability. So they will apply through their organization. Then once they have received the income tax exemption certificate as a result of their disability, then their certain income, the first 150,000 of their income will not be subjected to taxation. So in case they are employee of the organization, the church, or the CBO, or the self-help group, then the first 150,000 will not be subjected to pay as you earn. Also, the total of 1.8 million per year. And when I talk about 1.8 million per year, it will apply to all their incomes, so long as they are individuals and they're resident with a valid income tax certificate that they have applied through for, and they apply through their organization, and they will be the part of the application will be, they will be checked by a medical doctor who will confirm that they are disabled and give that report to their body. Once they have applied and have been given a valid income tax exemption certificate, valid for a period of 5 years, then the first one 50,000 of the income, whether from employment or from business or from rental, will not be subjected to taxation up to a total of 1.8 million per year. Then the second category of income tax exemption certificate will apply to organizations. So this will apply to organizations such as community-based organization, self-help group, the church. So church or even the mosque. So what they'll do, the church or the mosque or the self-help group or the community-based organization will be expected to apply to the commissioner to be exempted from paying corporation tax. So I'm clear on that. It is only based on corporation tax. And I've made it clear that that organization, that church, that self-help group, so long as you have employees that you have employed, whatever you pay them will still be subject to pay as you earn. What will be exempted is corporation tax. So what I mean is that organization, once it has applied for the income tax exemption certificate and the commissioner has granted the income tax exemption certificate, then it means all the income that that organization will be getting, either from business or from any other way, will not be subjected to taxation on an annual basis. So what is the requirement for an organization to apply for income tax exemption certificate? So the first one is that organization will be required to have operated for a period of 3 years in Kenya. Then the other thing is that organization will be required to be established in Kenya. Then the commissioner will be looking at 4 things that that organization must be established for. So what are the 4 things? So we call them the 4 pillars. So the 4 pillars is for your organization to be qualified for, or to be allowed to apply for the income tax exemption certificate. Then the first pillar is that the purpose in which that organization, that CBO, that self-help group has been formed is, the first purpose is relief of distress to the community. Then the second one will be furtherance of education. Then the third one will be furtherance of religion. This will apply to the churches and the mosque and any other religious organization. Then the last one will be, I've talked about relief of distress, relief of poverty, furtherance of education, and also furtherance of religion. So if your organization, the main purpose in which your organization has been formed fall within those 4 categories, which is relief of distress to the community, relief of poverty, furtherance of education, or furtherance of religion, then your organization will qualify for to apply for income tax exemption certificate. Then the other thing is that organization must be established in Kenya. Then the headquarters must also be in Kenya. Then the income, we remember we talked about 2 incomes, grant and donation. So that income that the organization receives, it is spent within the territory of Kenya. Then your organization will qualify to apply. So how do you apply? You go to iTax system, then you make the application. And what do you attach? You will be required to attach certain supporting document. So the supporting document that your organization will be required to attach. The first one will be audited financial statement for a period of 3 years. Then the second one will be financial statement for a period of 3 years. Then the second one will be a letter by the government official within your area. When I talk about the government official within your area, I'm talking about the local chief. So the local chief will do a letter introducing your organization, confirming that your CBO, that your self-help group falls within their jurisdiction, and whatever you are doing, they're just confirming that your organization has a physical premises or a physical presence within a certain geographical location. Then the other thing will be your organization will be required to apply for a tax compliance. So what is a tax compliance? Allow me just to clarify on a tax compliance for the sake of those who are joining for the first time. For a tax compliance is a document that is given by the commissioner to confirm that your entity, your organization, your self-help group is compliant with all taxes. So what do you mean by tax compliant with all taxes? What we mean is the organization has filed all its returns. So once it has filed all its return, paid all the taxes that are due, then the commissioner will provide the organization with a tax compliance certificate, which is valid for a period of 12 months or 1 year. So that will be part of what you are attaching. Then the last one will be the officials of that organization. Most community-based organization or self-help group have trustees. In case of a church, I think there will be the top officials. Also, they'll be required to attach their tax compliance certificate. So once you have attached those, then the commissioner will review, and once it is happy with that, the organization will receive an income tax exemption certificate, which is valid for a period of 5 years. And what it means is the benefit of having the income tax exemption certificate is your organization will be able to receive donation across, because remember, for an organization to give you donation to any other entity, then that will be part of what they require. Then also, in case your organization, maybe most churches, for example, most churches, they will open schools, private schools or private hospitals. Then with that exemption certificate, the advantage will be all income that will be generated from those private activity, even though they are business activity, then all income, so long as it has been confirmed that the income will not be distributed to members or to any other person, but the same is being plowed back to the organization purposes, which I've said fall within the 4 categories, which are furtherance of education, furtherance of religion, relief of distress to the community, and relief of poverty. Once that has been confirmed, then any income, even from the commercial activity, will not be subjected to taxation. So I hope I've answered your question, although I've used many words, but I hope I've answered the 2 questions that relate to tax exemption and also the claim.
Okay, thank you for that, Luca. Yes, you've answered the questions. So we'll look at a few more questions from the chat box. Then now we can come to the people who've raised their hands. There's a question from Hamisi says, where the non-ETIMS expenses are plenty, is it possible to sum up the expenses per supplier, e.g. airtime? I just put Safaricom and the sum used for the year. So he's asking for non-ETIMS expenses. Can you sum them up?
Yes, because even the space that has been given there, there's always been concerned that certain organization, they have quite big expenses. So what you can do, you can sample. You just sample, especially the big expenses. You can attach the expenses because the commissioner will only be interested in reviewing the big expenses. So you can sample, then attach some. But remember, even as you are closing the year, you prepare everything for in case of any return review. So yes, you can do just sample, attach samples.
Okay, he said sum them up on the CSV provided. Can he sum up instead of listing, let's say, all the airtime expenses? He does one row with the total sum.
Yes, that is allowed. You can do that. So long as, remember from your end, so long as you have now the totals. Because even as you are preparing the return, remember there is that possibility of return review. And so even as you are summing up the in iTax, don't forget to keep the records, because in my presentation, I talk about record keeping. So just put in mind that there may be an issue of return review, and you may be required to now to give a breakdown of what you have summed up. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Cherotich is asking, how can individuals like sale people who earn commission claim expenses not supported by ETIMS? Cherotich, that has been addressed. From your iTax account, you can declare I know the word declare has been flagged off, but you can state what expenses were, non-items, and then input the same when you're filing your return, Cherotich. So we've addressed that. Grace is asking, Grace says, thank you for the great presentation. Does that accounting for non-items expenses support also supply to individuals who may be doing business? So she's asking if that applies to people not in business. Individuals in business. And then there's a second question. When the bottom line on the tax computation is negative, do you refund the overpaid tax to the taxpayer? And then the third question was, what do you do with the expenses that have no receipts, like airtime? So 3 questions, Luca. Does the non-items also apply to individuals in business? Do we refund? And what do you do about expenses that have no receipts, like airtime?
Okay, thank you for the questions. So I also start with the airtime. You only need to they give a breakdown. For example, if you are claiming airtime as an expense, we will give a breakdown to have a total. Then apart from that, you can attach a screenshot of your M-Pesa message. You don't need them. In case you don't have a receipt, you attach evidence of payment. So you can attach M-Pesa screenshot of the M-Pesa message that is showing if you're claiming an expense of airtime of 1,000, then there must be a support, maybe a screenshot of the M-Pesa message showing 1,000. Then on a negative figure appearing on the income tax return, yes, the refund process is available. However, you must apply. So what the commission is saying, in case you find you have filed a return, either an individual, maybe you have received an employment income, remember to go back and make an application. So when you are applying for the refund, attach the relevant document. If you have received employment income alone, the document to attach will be the P9 or insurance document in case you have insurance. So attach the P9 and make the application. If you are in business, the commissioner has provided 2 ways of you claiming the overpayment. Either you can apply for a refund and the amount is refunded to you, or you can decide that you don't want a refund, but you want the overpayment to be used to offset against current or future tax liability. So yes, refund is there so long as you make the application. The challenge has always been most people, they don't make the application, yet they expect the refund to be made. So you must apply. Then on the non-items supported, it applies also to individual with business. So we have said when I was doing my presentation in regard to income tax individual, I talked about that other person, that individual with both employment income and other income apart from employment. So yes, it applies. The process is the same. It applies to all the income tax returns. So income tax individual, income tax for the company, and also income tax for the partnership, and also income tax for the CBO or self-help group.
Okay, thank you for that, Luca. That was clear. I can see she's also asking about bus fare and market expenses, but you can correct me, Luca, as from 2024, it is a requirement that all business expenses are supported by a TIMS or an eTIMS receipt. But now when it comes to filing of this year's return, we made a relaxation so that you're able to manually claim those expenses where you don't have an eTIMS or TIMS receipt. But remember again, the expenses have to be related to what you're doing. So you cannot claim ad hoc expenses. The expenses have to be allowable one and related to the income or the income that you're generating one. And also you have to have some form of a receipt because for record purposes or tax purposes, every transaction is accompanied by a receipt or a record. So you have to also have records for the same. So Grace, I hope we've been able to address your question. I can see a question from Lucy. A welfare group earned some interest income from the bank. The bank withheld 5%. Is that a final tax, or they will have a further 15% to pay? Luca?
On interest income, I think you need to confirm, was it 5%? Because interest from bank should be, withholding tax should be 15%. So we said, in my presentation, we said the person receiving makes us to be able to confirm whether it is final or not. And we said, if it is being received by an individual with a PIN which starts with an A, then it will be qualifying interest. Whatever has been with the L will be final. But if you are an organization and you have a PIN which starts with a P, then you will still be required to declare the gross interest income. Then whatever has been withheld as 15% will be a tax credit. So in case your CBO or your self-help group does not have a valid income tax exemption certificate, then you'll have a tax liability for whatever is remaining. So remember to declare the interest income as other income that have been received by your organization. Then you can claim, the only expenses that I can see you claim is maybe bank charges, which will be minimal. So your CBO or your self-help group will have a tax liability on the whatever is remaining. So how do you determine the person receiving it? If it is an individual with a PIN which starts with an A and they are residents, then it will be qualifying interest. The amount which has been withheld is final. If it is any organization, any entity with a PIN which starts with a P, even if it is a church or a CBO or a self-help group, so long as you don't have an exemption certificate, an income tax exemption certificate, then you'll be paying taxes on the interest income.
Okay, that is clear, Luca. Thank you for that. Remember, when we say final tax, we mean that tax on, you don't have additional tax to pay on that income. What was deducted and paid to KRA is final, meaning you don't have any additional tax to pay on it. I can see a question from Eric, who's the same way as that one for a company. I think that has been addressed, but you can just brush on it, Luca.
You went off a bit. Maybe you repeat the question.
Is the return for a CBO filed the same way as that for a company? That was the question. I know
Yes,
you've addressed it, but you can just brush through
yes,
it.
we have addressed it, but I can just repeat. So even for the CBO, you file the same way. However, remember to give a proper narration on the income that you have received, because for a CBO or a self-help group, we know you can have several types of income. So the clarification that we want you to make is, even as you are filing the return, ensure that you give the proper narration for the income. For example, if it is members' contribution, don't capture it as a business income. Just put it down there as other income, and you capture exactly the way it is, members' contribution, because we know members' contribution, it will not be an income subject to taxation. In case you have a business income, capture it correctly as business income. So the caution that we are giving out is, even as you are filing for your CBO and your self-help group, it will depend with the income that the organization has received. If it is an income which is not subject to taxation, make the clarification, make it easier for the commissioner to be able to understand that the income that you have received is either donation, grant, tithes and offerings, or members' contribution. Then the same will be, the commission will be able to see properly that this is an income not subject to taxation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. That was clear. I see a question that is has been asked a lot. The person has filed the returns, and their tax is 0 as per the return, but they're not able to apply for a tax compliance certificate. I will tie that to also another one where they're getting a text telling them they have a principal tax after filing their return. So maybe you can address those two.
Okay, so whatever the issue is a part of emerging issue, and it normally affects any person with employment income. So we have said when you are doing your individual return, you confirm that the tax due there is not a positive figure. Where you find yourself that you have filed your return and it is coming out as a without liability, then later you find there is a liability, then the issue most probably will be on the side of your employer. So ensure you alert your employer. So what your employer will do, they'll get in contact with the account manager. For every PIN, the KRA has mapped that PIN to a certain KRA officer who is in charge of dealing with any issue arising. So tell your employer that I filed my return and I'm still being asked for to pay some taxes. So they were supposed to reach out to the account manager who will be able to address the issue of missing pay credit, because the issue is there was a small issue or an error whereby pay credits for the month of November and December 2025 were not being reflected in the employees' ledgers. So in simple terms, what I mean is whenever your employer deduct taxes from you, they are supposed to do a pay return on a monthly basis. So when they do the pay return on a monthly basis, whatever they've deducted to you is credited or it is transferred directly to your iTax profile. So you'll find a situation whereby for the year 2025, what you have declared as taxes deducted from you is not reflecting in your iTax ledger. However, it is not your issue so long as you make sure you tell your employer to get in touch with the KRA, and once they reach out to the account manager will be able to sort out the issue. The account manager will be able to confirm that the amounts were deducted from you, and there's something they'll do from, we call it back office, and the credits will be able to reflect in your ledger. So mostly it affects government employees, but also lately we have seen it affecting private employees. So just let your employer reach out to the account manager and the issue will be resolved. So what you need to do is ensure you keep your P9 well, because remember the burden of proof is on your side. So just keep your P9 well. It is an evidence. It shows, it confirms that you are in employment and taxes were deducted from you. But make sure your employer, the account person, the finance person reaches out to KRA, their tax service office, and the issue will be addressed accordingly.
Okay, thank you for that, Luca. I like that you keep insisting on record keeping, which is very important. Keep a record of your P9 form. Your P9 form is that document that shows a summary of what you paid and any deductions done by your employer within the year. So please keep records of your P9 forms, even for the previous years, just in case there's an issue like the one Luca has said, then you're able to refer back to that. And then also in business, keep a record of your income, a record of your expenses, together with the receipts, even for audit purposes. I can see a question here by Glad King. What is the process of filing a return for someone who has penalties for over 2 years? So she's asking if you have penalties, it has an implication on your filing. And then there's a question by Daniel. If the monthly contribution for members in a self-help groups are taxable, that was addressed, but you can just rush through it once again. The two, Luca, then now we can go back to the individuals who had raised their hands.
Yes, so you have said not all income are subject to taxation. The incomes that are subject to taxation are those which fall under the definition of business income. So members' contribution, yes, it is an income for the organization, for the CBO or for the self-help group, and you will still be required to report it in the return. However, it will not be subject to taxation because it does not fall within the definition of business income. The only caution we have said is, even as you are filing the annual return for your organization, remember to put a proper narration for it. Put it the way it is: members' contribution, income from members' contribution, and you put it as other income. And the same will not be subject to taxation. So the only thing you will need is to get an auditor to do your proper books of accounts. And when you are filing, also remember to adjust accordingly, because that income will not be subject to taxation, but the way you capture it in the annual income tax return can lead to taxation. So there is a provision for you to adjust for that income so that it does not lead to taxation. Then the second one was on, there was a second question.
Penalty. The person
So for
has
penalties,
penalties for 2 years.
so penalties does not affect your filing return. However, it will affect your application for a tax compliance. Remember, we talked about a tax compliance, which is a document given by the commissioner to confirm that an individual or an organization has paid all its taxes. So it will hinder your application for the tax compliance. However, the good news is the government of Kenya has extended the amnesty. So currently there's an amnesty in place which will allow you can apply and will get a waiver of the penalties. That is the good news, but it will not affect the way you file your return. It will affect you getting the tax compliance, but there is a way forward. Apply for the amnesty for the penalties and interest that have been accrued.
Okay, thank you for that. For the next question, Mr. Luka will answer it, then you can add a comment. Dorka is saying they tried applying for a tax compliance certificate for an NGO, but then so Dorka, for that, the NGO can still apply for eTIMS either on eCitizen or on etims.kra.go.ke. However, if you're not making any sales or you're not providing any services, you're just purely doing NGO work, then you don't have to raise those eTIMS invoices. However, it is a requirement that you be registered on eTIMS. Mr. Luka, you can add a comment on that?
Yes, the only issue is just your onboarding eTIMS, which is a simple process. You do application in the eTIMS profile. Remember, it is for when we are talking about eTIMS, make sure you go the two-way process. So the first process will be onboarding. Then the second process will be you requesting for the service, the eTIMS. So ensure you complete the two-level process. We have the challenge of most people will onboard, then they don't complete the process, then they still have the same challenge. So remember to onboard and also request for the service request. Then the other good news, the commissioner has made it easier. The approval will be automatical. You don't need to visit KRA. You don't need to call KRA. Once you have onboarded and you have requested for the service and the approval is done within 24 hours or less, then you'll be able to apply for the compliance. And as Mildred has said, you won't need to invoice for those other income. The only time you'll be required to invoice is if your organization, your CBO or self-help group is involved in commercial activity and is earning business income, which will be subject to taxation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. When we say on board, we mean register, to register on eTIMS. So the same will apply to what Daniel has asked. It's an NGO, they receive grants from foreign donors. How do we issue eTIMS invoices for such? Again, Daniel, as Mr. Luka has said, this is for commercial purposes or processes. So that means when you're issuing an eTIMS invoice, you're either making a sale, you're selling something to that person, or you're providing a service to that person. So that's when you generate eTIMS invoices for them. That whatever invoice you generate for them is declared as sale and will be required to be declared in your return and taxes paid on it. So ensure, as Luka has said, it's business generating. You can add a comment on that, Mr. Luka, for someone who receives grants, how they issue eTIMS invoices?
Yes, you have made it clear. They don't need to issue an eTIMS for grant. The only addition that I want to make is remember when you are spending now the grant, give out to your organization PIN to the suppliers for the services or the goods that will be incurring using the grant. Because at the end of it, although the grant income will not be subject to taxation, the commissioner still expects you to declare it because it is an income, though not a business income. So you'll be expected at the end of the year to declare the grant income and claim the expenses that you have incurred using the grant. So always remember to give out your organization PIN to the suppliers of either goods or services, and will now be good. And also, when you're filing the return, remember to make the narration the way it is. Don't confuse, don't capture it under business income. Put it the way it is, grant income, and adjust accordingly. You will be required to have financial statements, audited accounts. Then, once you have declared the grant income, ensure you adjust accordingly so that taxation does not apply, because the return is not able to know which one is taxable and which one is not taxable. It is now up to you is to be able to declare it correctly and adjust accordingly. Yes, I hope that's clear.
Okay, that is clear. I see a hand that was up. Just a minute. Saka, Mr. Saka, you can unmute and ask your question. I don't know if you can hear us. Okay, so I'm guessing he's not able to hear us. Let me see if you have any more questions as we're coming
Can
to
you
the
hear me
end
now?
of.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can proceed.
Yeah. I had two questions. Number one, I believe this one also can go towards an association. For instance, if you have formed an association just for bereavement, we are Kenyans, and sometimes when things like funeral comes, assuming you have a society that is solely for helping during bereavement, and out of what you contribute, maybe you have invested in these money market funds. Is that income, the 5% that maybe has been withheld by the banks, is that final, or still whatever you get is subjected, the interest you get is subjected to taxation? That's number one. And then number two, you've been talking about the churches, and you only talked about tithe and offertory, which is exempted. Supposing a church has a rental income, is that rental income subjected to income tax?
Okay, thank you, Alex. Mr. Luke, I know you've addressed those two questions before, but I'll just give you 1 minute to summarize on the two.
Okay, so I start with the last question, so which relates to church with other income. So we have said for any entity, whether church, CBO, self-help group, or welfare, in case you don't have a valid income tax exemption, then certain category of commercial activities will be subject to taxation. For example, if you have a church it doesn't have an income tax exemption certificate, and however, they have certain commercial activities. For example, they have a private school, or they have maybe rental properties. So long as they don't have a valid income tax exemption certificate, then the commissioner will expect them to pay taxes on those rental property or those private schools. However, the commissioner will not talk about tithes and offering. But on that commercial part of the organization, then taxation will apply so long as they don't have a valid income tax exemption certificate. That is why most organizations will apply for income tax exemption certificate. Once they have that, then all their income, regardless of whether it is rental income or whatever, then all their income will not be subject to taxation. Then also for the welfare group, we know that for welfare, the income will be from members' contribution. So you'll be expected still to declare that income from members' contribution. And the keyword or the key or the tip that we are saying is always make sure the narration is correct, members' contribution. Then whatever you have committed to money market, also you'll be expected to declare the same as other income. However, whatever the money market will have withheld will be final. However, you'll be still required to declare the same in the return accordingly. So the key thing is not all income are subject to taxation. So, however, for an organization to be exempted completely, they'll need an income tax exemption certificate. And also we are saying an organization can operate without income tax exemption certificate so long as the income that they are receiving are solely those that do not fall within the definition of business income. I hope I'm clear on that.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope, Alex, your question has been answered. Someone said we keep saying you have to state those incomes accordingly in the return, and they don't see a provision for that. So on the profit and loss account at the very bottom, there's a provision for other incomes and other expenses. So Mr. Luke, I'm guessing that's where they specify the specific source of that money. Is that correct?
Yes, I've shared. I hope the screen is clear. Please confirm whether you are able to see.
Yes.
I've shared the. Yes, so this part 2, other income. Then there is in bracket, it's written, describe the head of income. So ensure you describe the head. If it is donation, you put donation. If it is grant, if it is members' contribution, you put it the way it is. Make sure you make the description and do not capture it under business. We capture it under other income. This will enable the commissioner to understand the income that you have declared. I hope it is clear.
Okay, while you're at it, someone asked where they input. So they hold trainings and then they reimburse the attendees of the trainings. So under expenses, where do they input that?
Come again, they do what?
They hold trainings, then reimburse the attendees. So they
Okay.
give the attendees some money as a reimbursement for their maybe travel expenses. So when it comes to the expenses, how is that categorized?
So normally reimbursement, I'll need more information on who you are reimbursing, because if it is purely employees, okay, let me just talk about filing for 2025. For filing for 2025, the commissioner has provided a provision for you to capture the non-items expenses. So what you need to do for your case for the year 2025, I'm very sure when they are reimbursing them, they must have signed somewhere, maybe a payment voucher or something. So you'll be required to give a breakdown in the Excel. Remember, I took you through the Excel form where you are capturing non-items supported expenses. So you'll be required to give a breakdown of total reimbursement to those people. Then they must have signed something, maybe a register or a payment voucher, or maybe you paid it through M-Pesa, you attach the same as evidence. Then we'll be able to capture for 2025. However, going forward, your organization will need to do to have a meeting with itself and make informed decision based on the commissioner requirements that all expenses must be supported. So you'll need to make a decision on the best way going forward, because remember, the adjustment or the support that the commissioner is giving for the year 2025, it may not apply forever. So going forward, we may want to address the issue of how we'll be doing the reimbursement. However, for 2025, there is a provision for you to capture it through the Excel, then you attach the supporting document.
Okay, thank you so much. I can see now we are running out of time, so we will have to conclude. But from our members, thank you so much for making time. We were to address filing of income tax, but I can see there's so many questions on filing of the IT income tax company return, of which we have done that before in our previous training. So kindly go to Carry TV on YouTube and see the trainings that we did previously on income tax company returns, specifically for CBOs, chamas, and the likes, and also for the company. We have training sessions and recordings of the same. They're available on Carry TV, on YouTube, and maybe for the subsequent one, we can cover that specifically. Coming back to the income tax resident individual return, which was the reason for the training today. I think we've been able to cover quite a number of ways of how to file the return. We've seen you can do your return on WhatsApp through assistance from Shuro. I will show you a short clip on how to do it. And for your personal returns, you can mainly do a nil return on it. Luca, you can please tell me if you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so on WhatsApp, you can do a nil return. Basically, this is for anyone who does not have any income during all the 12 months between January and December 2025. This person had no income whatsoever, so they can do a nil return on WhatsApp. And also on WhatsApp, you can file for your employment income. So this is for individuals who were purely in employment. They didn't have any income outside of employment. And a few tips for this: before you can submit your return on WhatsApp, ensure that the information that is being presented to you is correct. In case it is not correct, then you go back and file from iTax and not from WhatsApp. On WhatsApp also, we are verifying that the person who's making this request is the owner of the number of that line and the owner of the PIN household. You provide your national ID number, then we verify the same. So if the number you're using is not the same one registered on iTax, then you'll not be able to proceed to do the filing on WhatsApp. Also, a new enhancement we've done this year, you can reset your password on iTax, and the same is sent to you via text and also via email. So that means if the email registered on iTax, you don't have access to it as an individual, you're able to get your password via text. You can log in and change your email. Also, we have a few services available on the USSD code, that is *222*5#. Again, when it comes to filing of your return, you can only do a nil return on the USSD code. All our services are still on iTax. That means on iTax, you can do a nil return for individuals who had no income at all within the 12 months. You can file for your employment income. You'll also see we have two options where you'll use the populated information through ITR for employment income only, or you download the Excel form, and the Excel form is also pre-filled for you. You're verifying the information that is there. In case there's an omission or something is not correct, you can edit and include what was omitted. Also, for income outside of employment, again, you can still utilize the pre-populated return. It will have filled your employment income details if you're in employment. It will have filled any withholding tax credits you have. It will have your insurance details if applicable, your mortgage details if applicable. It will have any payment credits done within the year, and then you're just filling out your profit and loss account and your balance sheet. But again, also verify the information that is pre-filled for you where any information is not correct, you can always edit it accordingly. Remember, for non-ETIMS expenses, basically expenses which you had but you didn't have ETIMS invoices for, you start on iTax as we have demonstrated. Input your expenses on iTax first through the CSV file as guided, then now come to input the same on your return. Luca, do you have any comments?
Okay. So my final words of so I want to say thank you to the participants for taking part in this engagement. So the purpose of this engagement is to assist you, members of the CBO or self-help group, to be able to comply. So we are ready to support you because your compliance is our top priority. And also the commissioner is saying, in case you find yourself you have a tax dispute, remember always to follow the available channels. The tax dispute does not mean is the end of the road for you as a taxpayer. You will be assisted accordingly. You can object to that additional assessment that your organization or yourself you have found. And in case you are an individual with a tax liability which you feel is not supposed to be there also, remember KRA is here for you to support you to be able to validate. So reach out to KRA and the commissioner will be able to review and correct any anomalies that as a result of tax liability, erroneously imposed tax liability. So we are here to support you, and your compliance is our priority. Remember to do your return in time and to pay taxes also in time, and you'll have complied. So with that, I wish to thank you, Mildred, and the team for organizing such a forum, and we look forward to others in future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Luca. He's from the MST, Micro and Small Taxpayers Unit. And please remember, these trainings and the previous ones we've done, also guides are available on KRA TV. And in case your question has not been addressed on the chat box, even after the training, we'll keep on addressing them so that they're all answered. And we will have subsequent trainings. We normally do these trainings every Thursday. You can check KRA TV to see what we are training on next, but we normally do the trainings every Thursday. Luca, you can tell me, let me just play one clip on how to use the simplified solution, and then now the subsequent training we can focus on people in business or companies. We can focus on that. So let me share my screen, then you'll tell me if that is visible. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get it, but for WhatsApp, the number is 0711 099 999. I've put it on the chat box. You just text the number and then you'll get the prompt. You can follow the prompt in terms of the filing. Remember, for WhatsApp is purely for employed people, and you verify the information presented before you can submit. Luca took us through how to check if you have a tax to pay or if you have a refund. So please verify that before you can submit. So that is it from our team. We are from the Civic Education and Tax Outreach. My name is Mildred. I was your host. And then we have Lucy Kawira on the sign language interpretation. And this was in conjunction with the Micro and Small Taxpayers Unit, specifically on the tax education team, with Mr. Luca taking us through this. So please, this session is recorded or is being streamed and will be availed via KRA TV on YouTube, and all training contents are on KRA TV, same as the guides on how to do the filing, including company returns, CBO, Chama, self-help groups returns. We have material on that on KRA TV. So thank you for availing your time early in the morning to join us. The training has come to an end, but we'll keep it running for just a few more minutes so that you're able to respond to all questions that have not been responded to on chat. So thank you so much, and you can leave at your own discretion.